cheers to Texprocess Americas coming up in just a couple of months, May 6th through 8th in Atlanta. Um, I think everyone knows both of us, but my name is Xochil. I'm from the Chicago Pattern Maker, and I'm also a board member of the Steams Association, and I call myself the fan club president of SPESA.
Well, I appreciate that. At least we have one person in our fan club. We're gonna get a few more coming up, so I'm excited about it. Well, I'm Michael McDonald.
Absolutely.
I'm the president of SPESA, which is the Sewn Product Equipment and Suppliers of the Americas. Nice long acronym. But we are the co-producers of Texprocess Americas, so it is a pleasure to sit down and talk with you. Hopefully, for the first of many leading up to the show, at the show, and after the show, to kind of give a full overview of what's going on.
Yes. So I'm part of the education committee. We're kind of focusing on the tech talks on the floor. And for those who remember, Michael and I did a kind of Between Two Ferns show recap at the end of the last edition. So we will be doing that again.
And we'll
But
be back by popular demand.
yes, by popular demand. We were written up in many publications. But there's lots to be excited about this year, and it's now been 2 years getting back to our regular schedule again after sort of being disrupted the past few years, and that's very exciting to get new things on the floor, new innovations, new technologies. Obviously, lots of hot topics going on in the world, as always.
Oh, yes. So the one thing that I can guarantee about this industry is it's never boring. Could be frustrating at times, but it's never boring. So there's always something to talk about, always something to address, and always something to go over.
Yes. So sometimes that can feel kind of daunting, though, right? To people who are like, there's all this crazy technology, there's AI, how do I implement this? How much is it all going to cost me? One of our big themes for the show, though, is collaboration and accessibility, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's honestly, it's one of the things that excites me. One, about the show, and I'm sure we'll go into plenty of details about it, but just the industry as a whole. And this isn't, this is one of the first organic themes that I've developed. Usually, when you're planning a conference, you're planning an event, you're like, what's the theme? What's the theme? This kind of just came up on its own. It's just the concept of accessibility. And I think we really need to drive it home, both for Texprocess Americas, but then also the industry as a whole, is just how accessible technology is today. Usually when people think about accessibility, they're like, or technology, they're like, oh, sewing automation, or getting a new, CNC cutter, or, just big investments that, you need, somewhere between 50 or, $500,000 to like really invest. And that's just not the case anymore. Like, sure, there is amazing, expensive equipment that would really help your efficiency if you have the capital to invest in it. But also, you can pay $5.99 a month for an AI system that will completely overhaul your shop floor control system. So
Absolutely.
it's cheaper and more accessible than it's ever been. And I think as an industry that's currently trying to find itself, especially in the US and in the Americas as a whole, like, we're not going to get that big investment for the next year. We're just not. And so I think, I'm excited about the investments that are being made in the industry right now. We'll talk about that. I mean, the different institutes that are being set up, the different public and private investments that have coming in, despite all the chaos that's going on. Like, there's still capital available, but even if you don't have capital available, there's still technology available.
Right.
And I think that's the point.
Our industry is very well known for being scrappy and kind of coming up with solutions from nothing or from very little. So I'm excited for those that do have, the capital available or grant money, things like that, to put something to use, can really go far. But again, you can do something for very little, even some things that are free that you can kind of utilize, like the Chat GPT and stuff like that, just to give yourself an entry point into something, and be able to utilize new data.
There is absolutely no reason somebody should be running a factory the same way they did. We used to joke that I had somebody that worked in the Department of Defense, and he would do a PowerPoint of an ammunitions, a automotive, and an apparel factory in the 1940s and what it was today. Now, this would have been about 10 years ago, but only one looked the same. That's inexcusable at this point in time. And
Right.
not, again, I'm not telling people to go in and invest a lot of money to upgrade, their equipment, but there's just so much accessible technology to really improve your manufacturing process. And the industry needs to really take advantage of that and embrace it. So I think, I am honored to be a part of, that crusade and that mission. But
Mhm.
yeah, we will be driving it home real hard at the show in Texprocess Americas, just how accessible technology is and how accessible information is. We can get
Yes.
into a little bit of like the type of experts that we're bringing to the show, the type of information that they're talking about. Like, information's accessible, experts are accessible. You just need to know who to talk to and where to find them. And our goal is to make it easy to find them. So it's one of
Yeah,
our other missions.
absolutely. Yeah, and there's ways you can outfit your existing factory with, again, little investment to just improve. So you don't have to buy a whole new cutting table necessarily, but you can have technology tap into that 20-year-old table or whatever you've
Yep.
got going on.
Uh,
Let's talk about some of the cool people, some of the experts that we have coming in. I'm really excited. We have a couple of big name companies coming to Tech Talks and symposiums. Under Armour will be there, Columbia Sportswear will be there, NASA will be there.
oh. Speaking of technology, those are my favorite tech nerds.
Yes, yes. We love the outdoor market and all the functional apparel, workwear, and of course, obviously going to space. Like, how incredible.
I actually, you know what? I've got a good question for NASA already. Of how have we privatized space travel, but we haven't automated the sewing process yet? That's
Good
come
question.
on, NASA. We need to get on that. I've said for the last like 3 years, I think sewing automation is the greatest engineering challenge in manufacturing today. And I feel like it should garner a lot more interest in trying to solve it because it's a challenging problem to solve. And so those nerdy engineers, myself included, really should be biting their teeth into it. But well, I'm sure
Absolutely.
I'll whether they want to talk about it or not, I'm sure I'll pester them about it. So
We'll pass that on to them. Yes.
yeah, but from our end, I mean, again, one of our goals for this was giving people access to the experts. And so we've kind of developed an Ask the Expert campaign of bringing in as many, thought leaders in this industry as we possibly can on as many different topics, ranging from trade and tariffs to,
Big one.
and to venture capitalists and where's capital and we've got experts that can talk about how if you want to get a government contract, how do you go about doing that? It's not that easy anymore, and there's complicated processes. And so if you haven't been doing it for 30 years, there's a pretty high barrier to entry. And so bringing in somebody just to show you how to use the bid process and find the contracts as a whole. So just trying to make that information accessible and at least exchanging a business card and having that support system in your back pocket if you ever need it. So I think that's a big thing that we're talking about bringing to the show. So it is
Yeah.
shaping up really nicely, and the experts that are coming are pretty exciting.
We're talking with some people on training, like workforce development, upskilling, cross training. But we're doing something a little interesting this year too, where we're actually doing a next generation panel made up of like students and recent grads and asking them, what are you looking for in the employment market in this industry? I think there's been so much talk about how do we get young people in, but have we asked them? So I think this will be a really interesting discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've spent the last 3 weeks talking with dozens of different universities. We're planning a conference in Austin right now, and so just connecting with TCU, UT Austin, Austin Community College, Baylor. There's like 5 universities in that area that all have a fashion, manufacturing, something to do with our industry. They all have programs, they all have degrees, and just talking to them about what their students are learning and what they are expecting when they get to the industry. It's fascinating. And so, we need to engage that next generation because we need that next generation. And I think that
Absolutely.
industry has known that for a while now. And I'm not, as apocalyptic as I may have been about 5-10 years ago about like, oh wow, we're gonna have to replace 3 generations with 1 generation because other than, ourselves included, most Gen X's and millennials didn't want to touch this industry with a 10-foot pole. And so, but I
Absolutely.
think we're really starting to break that that scale or whatever the right
But
term
like that
is.
barrier, yeah, no, there's a ton of interest, I think, from young people. I spoke about this a few months ago about how, like on TikTok, it's trending that for Gen Z looking for how is it made videos, and they want to see inside a factory. Like they love to see that stuff. This is that opportunity to see it right here on the floor.
Yeah.
So I'm excited that we'll get kind of a better social presence maybe around this show and get people, young people again, excited to be a part of it and experience it with us. We had a topic too that came up a couple years ago about micro factories. We had Ram Sareen from Tukatech kind of talk about like kind of this, revolutionary thought of micro factories, whether that's a standalone micro factory or whether it's a smaller cell within a larger production facility. And so I'm doing a panel this year, like micro factories in the real world, bringing in actual small business, factories who focus on product development and small batch manufacturing, and how do they make that work? How does that help their customers either start a business or scale a new product, test market, things like that.
Yeah, that is an awesome topic. And so I think, bringing in the case studies is so important. Just proof of concept. This industry needs proof of
Yes.
concept. And I love it because I was having a conversation just a couple months ago of like, I was a little worried about, micro factories because it was a huge topic, 5 years ago. And then I think people just stopped talking about it before it even came into fruition. And so, proving out that no, it's still here. It's the way it works. And let's
Yeah.
be honest, it's the way that we're going to grow the industry in the US. You're not going to bring in 400 employee factories anymore. You're just not.
Right.
I'm
Right.
I'm talking with multi, billion-dollar retailers that are trying to set up factories in the US. They're not setting up 400 employee factories. They're going to set up a 40 employee factory in North Carolina. They're going to set up a 40 employee factory in San Francisco. Like it's going to be micro factories. That's the future.
Right.
Unless
And
you
a
go full
focus.
lights out automation, which is possible in the future, but that's the reality, and that's the way it should be. You have the efficiency. 40 people can do the job of 400 people from
Yes.
a decade ago. So,
And a focus on, higher complexity products and things like that, not commodity products. So that's not the way the US is going to compete globally. We need to focus on like what are we going to be really good at here?
yeah, that's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for me, one of the really exciting topics that a lot of our exhibitors as well as our attendees are going into is circularity. Uh, I think that's fun, and I think that was the analogy I was using is like I don't really want circularity to go to the way of microfactories where people stop talking about it before we even do it. And so I think there's a lot of exciting opportunity and possibilities in circularity because I mean from a nerdy equipment perspective you're talking about like big hulking shredding machines that are just that grungy but cool mechanical technology that I kind of really nerd out on. Then you have like AI vision systems to identify fiber types or defects and so it's you know ranges the gamut of technology when you talk about circularity. And so I think that's a big topic that'll come up at the show. And I think it's a big topic for the industry because California is passing a law of like you have to send your recycled content or fabric waste, but they don't have anything to do with it yet. Like so we need to give them
Right.
something to do with it, and that's part of the industry challenge. You know, it's a real big opportunity. I
A
mean,
huge
there's
opportunity. Collection is kind of taken care of, but what do you do after the collection period?
right.
Yes. How do you make it useful again? So no, there's lots of, I think, opportunity there to be creative, to be innovative, figuring out those circular solutions. That was again a theme from the last Texprocess show that I think needs to come, the next step forward. Like, how do we put this into practice here?
Absolutely. Oh, there's lots to talk about. It's good and exciting.
It is good and exciting, yes. I mean, on that note, kind of sidestepping, but AI technologies, we're talking about, unlocking efficiencies in the factory, paying attention to all kinds of things like downtime on the machines, vibration data, hooking it up to your cutting equipment, your sewing equipment, and then understanding, you know, the flow of goods and how that moves through, not just your machine time, but your movement sort of in between. So how can you maximize efficiency, taking into account, you know, the whole picture?
Yeah. I mean, that's something that covers the entire supply chain of AI.
Absolutely. Yeah. No matter what industry or sub-industry you're kind of working in, what type of products you're making, absolutely can help you.
Like, I'm sure you've gotten, you know, more experience into the, you know, the visual AI systems. And
Yeah.
there's really cool systems of, you know, that can, you know, pretty much help anybody become a designer of, you know, working through the AI to change, you know, a strap on a purse or whatever it might be. It really simplifies that process down to, like you said, you know, one of my favorite uses is just setting your workforce lineup. Like, if you feed it enough data about the efficiency of employee A next to employee B, they're 92% efficient, but next to employee C, they're, you know, 98% efficient. Then as soon as your workforce comes in, you can use AI to set the lineup for the most efficient process. And it's like, you know, like it's in Chat GPT. It doesn't
Incredible.
cost a dime.
Yeah. And if you're missing one person one day, you can easily reconfigure without, you know, losing that efficiency for the day.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's exciting opportunities to really help bridge some of the gaps that we need to revolutionize our workforce, because we need to, like, we need to be training people for jobs that don't exist yet, you know, because they're going from operators to engineers to mechanics to designers to programmers. And you know, this technology is what's going to help us do that. So it's exciting in that way.
It is an exciting career path too, for that opportunity to exist, that you're not just signing up to be a sewing operator for 40 years, but maybe you do that for a while and then maybe you become a trainer. Maybe you're, you know, now utilizing other technology, other, you know, more advanced machinery, and then now you have the ability to program it. Like, that is super exciting, and again, brings more people into our industry for life, hopefully.
Empowering the workforce, like it's
Yeah.
just it's the aspect of technology that gets overlooked. Everybody's like, oh, technology comes in to replace the workforce. That's
No,
not going to happen. It doesn't happen in our industry. We've got, I think, 500,000 vacant jobs in and around our industry and the manufacturing sector. Like,
and probably more that aren't even being posted because,
right,
you know, they don't know that they need it, or they know they need it, but they know they can't find it, whatever
right.
the case. Yeah.
Yeah,
Was the way
they
to
just stop
bring it
expanding
in.
or scaling, because the workforce is the number one factor for being able to scale. And so there's a lot of other factors at play there, but
Yes. On the other side, I think like we're going to be talking about some new, you know, fabric technologies, medical textiles is one. And then of course we've got like our, you know, tariffs conversation that'll be ever evolving.
yes. Actually, I think we will be almost exactly 100 days into this administration come our trade show, and so I think
There's
it'll
a
be
lot
really,
to unpack.
yeah, there will be a lot to unpack. Hopefully by then we'll kind of have an idea, and it, you know, won't just be delaying another month and another month and another month and waiting to see and waiting to see. This industry really loves uncertainty. They just love
Right.
it.
We
So,
thrive on it. We
we
might complain about it, but we
but yeah, like
thrive.
Nicole Bivens Collinson, who you know, would lovingly referred to as the notorious NBC.
Yes.
She'll be coming to speak, and anybody that's come to our trade show or conferences before, like, she is a constant and welcome face. Like, she's, again, one of the smartest people in the industry, especially when it comes to trade policy and trade tariffs. So if anybody can give us any guidance, it's her.
It's definitely her. Yeah, she'll be doing kind of a 20 minutes in trades, playing off of her 2 minute in trade podcast, down on the Tech Talks floor, and then she'll be involved in the symposium and a much deeper conversation.
Yeah, yeah. She's always excited to hear talk. I still remember, I guess it would have been 6 years ago now. Gosh, where was it? New Orleans. I believe it was a conference in New Orleans. I asked the audience, this was back when the 301 tariffs were put on China back then. And I they had just gone into effect, and I asked the audience, we did a show of hands, how many people think that these are going to be short-term, long-term, and permanent? And when I said permanent, there was only one hand in the back of the room that raised up, and it was Nicole, and she was like, "I really hope I'm wrong, but I'm not," and she's not. I don't.
It's
I mean,
not
I
so
don't think
far.
it's going anywhere.
Not
So
so far.
sometimes it's a curse to be right, but
Yeah, but we need those that expert eye and ears to be able to translate that for us and kind of help guide us through what's
yep,
going on here.
yeah, absolutely.
Some other fun stuff on the flip side, we'll be kind of reintroducing the Alphabet Soup Collective, both on the floor and at our after hours reception. Talk a little bit about the reception and our
Yeah.
ideas for
Yeah,
the.
I'm excited to finally attend. So we kind of demoed this idea. So the Alphabet Soup Collective is a combination of 11 different associations and growing. We're adding new associations every month. I mean, the whole goal is, it's called Alphabet Soup because every association has its own acronym. So I think we've got probably, if you put them all together, 50 different letters just jumbled all together. So
That's pretty cool.
maybe we can make an acronym out of all of them. I'll give it to Mike Fralix. I'll give it to the doctor, and he'll find an acronym using all of our letters.
I would
Yeah,
love to see that.
actually, you know what? I'm writing that down. I'm reaching out to him as soon as we're done. But yeah, it's all just about collaborating the industry. SPESA. What I love about working with SPESA is we're a very niche segment of the industry. We represent only suppliers to the industry, guys making equipment and software and services, and so we don't really compete with anybody else. But like you're talking about, you're on the board of Seams. We have a 30% overlap of membership with Seams, and that's fine because our members go to Seams because that's where their customers are. They come to SPESA because we support them and only them. And so they're not, competing with their customers in a board meeting or anything like that. Like we serve a purpose, but it means that we get to play in the sandbox with everybody else. And so we've really taken that to heart this year. And so everything from, the North American Linen Association to AATCC, American Academy of Textile Color and Chemists.
Color and chemists, yes.
I was about to say,
Yeah.
I've known them for like 3 decades. I'm like, do I actually know what their acronym stands for? Well, yeah, I mean, they're one of the largest associations in our industry, but they're very niche, and they do testing the methods and research, but then from them to the Advanced Textile Association, which covers the textile side of the industry, and so it's really exciting to kind of just bring that group together. But we did a test run back in Raleigh at the Textile show. Unfortunately, I was in Brazil at another trade show because there's a conference every day and a trade show every week, and so sometimes it happens that way. But I mean,
but it was an incredible, showing. I remember the tickets sold out when we were still trying to get people into the space. Luckily, it was an indoor-outdoor space that we could kind of cheat that, I think, a little bit, but it was very well attended, very popular. People were buzzing about it months and months afterwards. So I think everyone is excited. And I mean, truly, we need this collaboration for this hemisphere to really advance. We have to stick together and understand where we overlap, but where we cannot, complement one another, where we could tap into a resource from another association and help build up, members in another.
Yeah, I mean, again, people are still talking to me about it, even though I wasn't there. Of like just somebody in some segment of the industry that they met that they would have never engaged with otherwise, but ended up being very valuable. Like a new contact that was like, oh wait, this is something that we use, but we've done it the same way for 30 years that we just kind of take it for granted. And so just learning, it's what I love about this industry. Anybody that claims to be an expert on the textile industry, I don't believe a word they say. Because nobody is an expert on this entire industry. You can be an expert on your one little specific piece,
right?
But if you're an expert on building a sewing machine, you're not going to know how to measure denier on a fiber type. Like those are just obscure examples, but it really is.
It takes all of us together.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're really excited to bring the Alphabet Soup. So it will happen during the opening night ceremony on the first night. We co-sponsored the opening night with Messi Frankfurt, who are our show partners, and do an amazing job doing all the logistics and making the show actually happen. And so, we're excited to host the opening night reception with Messy Frankfurt and then welcome the entire Alphabet Soup Collective. So I think it's gonna. I mean, I don't like. I spent 10 years as a lobbyist in DC, and they still had fun conferences.
That's shocking.
But I like conferences and trade shows need to have fun.
We do.
Like,
well, you have fun, and then you're going to call up that person you had a great conversation with, and you're going to do business together. So it's building the relationships, and relationships really drive everything here.
Yep. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So yeah, well, we've got a lot of education and then a lot of fun too. I was gonna say a little bit of fun, but we have more than a little bit this time around.
A lot of fun, yeah. I think being able to show how that thread, connects all the different pieces is important. So in the Seams Pavilion, the Made in USA Pavilion, we're going to be doing a little supplier showcase, kind of showing exactly how that is intertwined. Like, here's an end product, here's the fabric that went into it, here's the thread that went into it, here's labels, zippers, different components all coming together, which, like, we know they all come together, right, to make a product, but highlighting each of those vendors and how they work together.
But here's the thing, I don't know. I don't think people do know that how they all come together. And actually, I'm talking to Will Duncan about, like, I'm really excited about that. Because I think it is so important. Like, you are showing not just a product, you're showing the entire supply chain.
Right.
And so when people are asking, like, well, how do I make this in America? You're like, well, here's 7 different ways.
Yeah.
With different supply chains, different suppliers, different geographic
product types,
segments.
all of that. Yeah. And you
So,
can get your yarn here, and you can have it, dyed here and, knitted together into a fabric. You have a cut and sewn here, finished. I mean, yeah, being able to show the full thing start to finish is going to be really cool.
Yeah. And I love it. You've kind of seen this trend and traceability, and people really want to know where their product comes from. But the only way that you see it now is if that company is completely vertical. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that they own everything about it, but, like, you'll see it with a t-shirt, and they have different thread colors to identify where different cotton came from, but it's still vague and very specific to that cause. And so what y'all are putting together is just, you could pick any random product types, but, like, showing what actually goes into it. And this is something you can replicate. We're not hiding any of the information. We're not, keeping our supply chain under NDAs. Like, we need to bolster this industry. We need to do it together so we can share suppliers, we can share manufacturers, we can share customers. Like, it's an all-inclusive effort, and it's really exciting to just I can't wrap my head. It seems so simple.
It seems simple, but it hasn't been done this way. So being transparent is new, right? Actually, that reminds me of one of the tech talks we have, Steven Satterfield coming in to talk about, like, lessons we can learn from, like, the food industry and sort of the transparency and of this food supply chain, like, where is it grown, this farm to table kind of thing that's happened over the last several years. We can, as a textiles industry, learn a lot from that movement and apply that to ourselves.
I always love bringing in outsider information. I think sometimes our industry gets its own way. It's got its own, historical baggage. They're like, this is the way it's always been done. That doesn't mean it needs to be the way it's always continued to be done. I don't think that was grammatically correct, but it doesn't matter.
Let's stop doing it just because that's how we've been doing it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, bringing in the outsider information again, like, some of the best things that I learned came from somebody from the book industry. We learned a lot, when we did a conference in Detroit, we brought in a bunch of people from the automotive industry. Now that's more of a direct correlation.
Sure.
But
no, but I remember that event, and it was really interesting to see how, things were tied together in a different way, from furniture, from automotive to apparel. And there's things that are common that bring us all together, but there's things that are a little bit different. But even automotive, like, they trace things back to, like, here's where this microchip came from, and here's where this came from. And we're not doing the same thing across the rest of the textile industry.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's really hard to do.
It's really hard.
I remember, in my lobbying days, they had passed a conflict minerals rule, and like you had to prove that you didn't get tin from the Democratic Republic of Congo. It's like nobody knows if they have tin in their buttons. They don't even know where their buttons come from, much
Right,
less where the tin in their button was mined. And
right.
so it's so complex, but it doesn't always need to be. That's a pretty specific example. But still, getting a better understanding of our supply chain is so important, especially in the Western Hemisphere. I've made this argument so many times that when you look at competing with China, like everybody talks about labor costs, labor costs, labor costs, and don't get me wrong, that's a factor. But like in
Mhm.
China, you've got dozens of ecosystems with built-in redundancy. So if they run out of buttons, there's a factory down the street. Like
Right,
it's not that we don't have that in the US or the entire Western Hemisphere. It's like we don't know if we have that.
right.
And
Yeah, and
so,
again, that goes back to being connected. So if you can't find it and you don't know that in like your own Rolodex, so to speak, you can reach out and tap into somebody else's Rolodex and let's merge these together. Let's make it so that you don't have to be scrambling or dropping a product or being on back order for months and months waiting on something.
yeah. And that is one of our major goals within SPESA, but then with Texprocess Americas. Within SPESA, we're doing work on databases and trying to just shine a light on the industry just so we need to know what exists before we know how to make it better.
Right.
It's one of our members, recently retired, John Stern from Methods Workshop. He always, his mantra was, "What gets measured gets improved," and I'm like, we don't even
Love
have the
that.
data to measure it yet. And so we're working to build that data set to then try and figure out, okay, well, what are we missing within the supply chain to continue to improve it? But then with Texprocess Americas, no, we are giving people an opportunity to become a part of a supply chain, whether they're attending or exhibiting. We've got more new exhibitors at this show than I've ever been a part of. Now we took over the show back in 20 or the association back in 2018, so we kind of came in at an interesting time of the industry. But this is the first time that everything was coming out of the pandemic. How do you adapt? How do you address both from an industry perspective, but also from a trade show perspective? That was uncharted territory for the trade show industry. And so this is the first time we are moving forward. There is no okay, how do we just recoup? How do we maintain? How do we exist?
Right. Like
Now there's
taking us
how do
out
we
of this reactionary state of mind and putting us more into a proactive state of mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So
It's
it
just
excites me again, like getting all these new exhibitors. I'm like, okay, the industry's back, the industry's growing. The current marketplace isn't great, but it's the apparel and the textile industry. Like it always bounces back. People don't stop wearing clothes. Now,
exactly.
if we have to transition, things will change.
Things will absolutely change, but yeah, it's not going to go away. And we have to figure out what are the ways to strengthen where the areas we need to focus on. This is the great show to be at.
It is. It is.
It's
It's
my favorite show, and I say that even before being a SPESA fan club president. It's always been my favorite show. Nerd out on all the equipment, all the cool things going on, and lots of amazing connections that you build as well.
I will let all of the relevant people know because I'm certainly not one of them. I go and get to just enjoy the show. I'm not the one that makes it very good. Hopefully, you can make somebody smile. That's pretty much my only job there. But we have an amazing team that has been building the show, both within SPESA, with our supporters like Xochil, and with Messy Frankfurt. So uh, I'm
Yeah,
sure they will appreciate your compliment.
awesome. Yes. So if you haven't bought your ticket, now's the time. Register. We just passed early bird, but there's still it's not the higher price. You can still get in. There's still exhibitor space available, but that's going quickly. So if you're trying to show, don't miss out.
Make sure you also add in the opening night reception.
Absolutely. Yes.
You get your bang for your buck. I can guarantee you that.
Yes. It is well worth it. I'm so excited. It's never been a disappointing experience going to that.
Oh yeah, that much I can maintain. All
Awesome.
right. Hey,
How do we want to close this out?
Yeah. Like, well, I'm sure we'll get our flow here as we continue to do these. But yeah, Xochil, I appreciate you taking the time, and like I'm really excited about what is coming with this show and the opportunities that will come from it. So I think this is definitely a show to build on. Whereas, the last few that we've been a part of like, it's just making sure the industry's still there. It's, maintaining, and now it's time to build. And that's what excites me. So I see a lot of potential and a lot of prosperity there. So thank you for making it possible, because I can say this without a doubt. There is nobody who has done more for less to support the show and SPESA as a whole. So we can at least pay you in love and affection and gratitude.
Awesome.
We'll figure out something else along the way.
I'll accept drinks at the bar at the reception too. No, I'm just kidding.
Only a
thank you, Michael. I'm glad that we got to do this. It's always fun to get to chat on the industry and in general. So I'm looking forward to a really exciting time here in Atlanta.
Oh, we'll see you at the next one. We'll do many of these. And so again, anybody that's listening, I encourage you, if you've got questions, if you've got, if you want to exhibit or want to attend, but aren't quite exactly sure how, never hesitate to reach out to us. Or if there's just something you want to make sure you see at the show, let us know. It might already be there, and if it's not, then I'm going to find it. So
we'll make it happen.
Things accessible.
Access.
There we go. All right. Thanks, Xochil.
All right. Cheers.
I need my mug. I'll cheers with my water.
All right.